Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Cocktails After Dark. We're going to continue our exploration of old cocktail books, significant cocktail books. And this one today that we're doing is Floridita. This was published in 1939 in Havana, Cuba. It is another cocktail manual that is tied to a very famous bar. And this bar, Floridita, or La Florida, is significant because it was a hangout of Ernest Hemingway. And it is also credited as the birthplace of the daiquiri. Now, to be sure, there's a bunch of daiquiri recipes in here. And not only are the daiquiri recipes in here, but they are referenced by other cocktail writers like Trader Vic, who point to the daiquiri recipes in this book as being significant. There's two other recipes in here that I want to do, though, first, before I get to the daiquiris. And I think these are significant recipes. This cocktail book from 1939 is the oldest cocktail book that I own that has a tequila recipe in it. And we're going to get to that in a couple of weeks. The one we're going to focus on today is called the Mary Rose. And as I looked at this cocktail, the Mary Rose, I realized it's a Bloody Mary. So I started to do a little bit of research on the Bloody Mary. And this book is not going to stay open in the right spot. It'll be okay. So I started doing research on the Bloody Mary. First off, in this time period, 1939, in cocktail books published in Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean, you don't see a lot of vodka recipes. You don't see a lot of vodka recipes at all. In fact, this is the first sort of, I'm going to say North American, even though it's not North America. This is the first North American cocktail book where I see a vodka recipe. You certainly see them in some of the European books, like this one from 1930, the Savoy cocktail book. So, as I'm researching the Bloody Mary, it comes to my attention that this cocktail doesn't get mentioned in any of the places where you would expect to see it mentioned. So a little bit about the Bloody Mary. Someone claims to have invented it in 1920 or 1921 in a bar in Paris, which is why I would think that it would show up in the Savoy cocktail book, but it doesn't. It appears that the Bloody Mary doesn't actually show up in written form, a cocktail called Bloody Mary, until 1946. And that 1946 recipe is essentially the same as this 1939 recipe, but it's called Bloody Mary. And this 1947 Trader Vic cocktail book does have a Bloody Mary cocktail in it. But Trader Vic's version is really simple. It's just tomato juice and vodka. There's nothing else in it. There's no other accoutrement. Now, there is a cocktail from 1941, which is tomato juice and vodka, and it's called the Red Snapper. Now, I had always been told that a Red Snapper was a Bloody Mary made with gin. But in the case of this 1941 recipe, it is definitely made with vodka. So who knows how that fits in. The thing that I did find, though, is I didn't find this recipe mentioned in any of the research. Nobody said there's a recipe from 1939 Cuba called the Mary Rose that is essentially a Bloody Mary. And I'm kind of confused as to how a lot of the cocktail writers out there have missed it. Am I missing something? Nobody mentions this cocktail. And so if the first Bloody Mary recipe is printed in 1946, surely a recipe from 1939 with exactly the same ingredients called the Mary must mean something. So the idea is we're supposed to ice the tin and shake this. So the next thing is how to serve this. I'm going to use these coupes. The English recipe says to put it into an appropriate glass, whatever that means. The Spanish recipe says to put it into a cup special. I think these are pretty special. I kind of like them. Much more special than a straight-sided or the one that you would get a Bloody Mary in today. So let's see how this works out. Can I get it split equitably between the two cups? There you go, the Mary Rose.
The Mary Rose. Hello,
Jules.
friends. Hey, Glenn.
So,
I see why. Maybe is it called Rose because it's got tomato in it and it's kind of red rose?
well,
Is there someone named Mary Rose?
I'm going to go way out on a limb. Way out on a limb. And people are going to call me on this, and you can go right ahead. I'm going to say this is the very first Bloody Mary cocktail in a cocktail book.
Oh, so Mary Rose was once a pleasant and then became Bloody Mary instead of...
Yes, I'm gonna say that because...
Go crazy, Glenn. Go crazy. You heard it here first, folks.
To this point, there doesn't seem to be another vodka, lemon, Worcester sauce, tomato juice concoction written down in a cocktail book with the name Mary attached.
Okay. So specifically, you're saying that this is the first one called Mary, or this?
I'm going to say this is the first. Yeah, this is the first one called Mary.
Okay.
There were tomato cocktails before this that show up in the 1800s books, which are exactly the same without any alcohol in them.
Okay.
So, and those were just called tomato cocktail. Let's give it a go. I know how it's going to taste, I think. Yeah.
So to me, because of my bias,
It's missing two things. Okay, go ahead.
celery flavor
Celery flavor,
and the
hot sauce.
yeah. Well, and the Canadian in me says maybe a little clam juice.
Clam juice, definitely
you know,
clam juice, yes.
Totally biased there.
Definitely clam juice with a rim of hot salt. Yeah, celery flavor and hot sauce would certainly ramp it up. But even into the 1940s, this is from 1947, and Trader Vic, his Bloody Mary recipe is just tomato juice and vodka with a slice of lime on the...
On the side.
Yep, and he puts it into a chilled champagne glass. So I'm not too far off on the coupe.
No.
Because the Floridita doesn't tell you what to put it in other than to put it in a fancy glass.
But you know, you could solve that by just doing a little rim.
Doing a rim.
Easy little rim, be good to go.
And those are the evolution. That's the evolution of a cocktail. People come in and they say, it just needs a little bit. We add a little bit,
something,
little something, little something. So don't just tell me in the comment section that I'm wrong and that I'm crazy that this 1939...
We want the evidence.
Find the evidence.
Do the research.
Do the research. Give me the footnotes so that I can look it up. And if you happen to be someone who goes onto Wikipedia, maybe you could go onto Wikipedia and tell them that this cocktail is in this book, because nobody mentions it in any of the research that I found that this cocktail even exists, which I think is a shame because it is the very first Bloody Mary. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.